Good morning, Madam Speaker. For generations, Canadian citizenship has been a symbol of pride, opportunity, and belonging. It's been the envy of the world, a beacon of hope for those seeking freedom, safety, and a better life. Countries around the globe have looked to Canada as a model for how to build a fair, compassionate, and principled immigration system. But today, that reputation is destroyed. After a decade of Liberal government, Canadians are rightly concerned, not because of the newcomers who arrive here with hope in their hearts and a desire to contribute, but because of a government that has mismanaged our immigration system, neglected its responsibilities, and introduced policies that dilute the very value of Canadian citizenship. In Kitchener Centre, residents are deeply frustrated by the federal government's failure to manage the international student program. What was once a pathway to great Canadian education has become a cautionary tale of neglect and mismanagement. Let's be clear. This failure is not the fault of our citizens, nor the students who came here in good faith. It's the governments that failed to protect the integrity of our education system, and now our community is left to deal with the consequences. Many first and second generation immigrants in Kitchener have shared with me at their door their deep frustration with the federal government's failed immigration policies. These are individuals and families who came to Canada with hope, worked hard, followed the rules, and built lives rooted in contribution and community. Now, they feel their reputations are being unfairly tarnished by the government that allowed this system to spiral into dysfunction. They deserve better than to be lumped in with the consequences of Liberal mismanagement. They deserve a government that honours their commitment and protects the integrity of Canadian citizenship. Let me be clear. This is not the fault of immigrants. It's the fault of a government that has broke the system, and while the Liberals broke it, Conservatives will fix it. Canadians were rightly outraged to learn that a convicted child sex offender listed on the National Sex Offender Registry was granted a Canadian visitor visa despite his criminal history. This individual, who had sexually abused his underage niece, was allowed into our country under the watch of the current federal government. This is not just a bureaucratic oversight, it's a shocking failure of basic due diligence. A simple background check would have prevented this, yet the government chose to rely on the self-disclosure of applicants rather than proactively protecting Canadians. This case has shaken public trust, further highlighting how broken our immigration system has become under this leadership. Canadians deserve a government that puts public safety first, not one that allows dangerous individuals to slip through the cracks. Under the current Public Safety Minister's watch, 599 foreign criminals slated for deportation have gone missing, including 431 convicted of serious crimes, such as sexual assault and violent offences. These individuals were under deportation orders, but have vanished from the system, exposing alarming gaps in Canada's immigration enforcement and border security. This isn't just a failure of policy, it's a failure of leadership. Canadians deserve to know that those who pose a threat to public safety are being tracked, detained, and deported. Instead, we're seeing a system where dangerous individuals disappear into our communities unchecked and unaccounted for. This is yet another example of how the Liberal government has lost control of our immigration system, and it's Canadians who are paying the price. Bill C-3 is just the latest example of their misguided approach. It's a recycled version of Bill C-71 with portions hijacked from Senator Yona Martin's thoughtful and targeted Bill S-245. But instead of building on that work with care and clarity, the Liberals have chosen to abolish the first-generation limit, a measure introduced by Prime Minister Stephen Harper in 2009 to prevent the rise of Canadians of convenience. That measure was never about exclusion. It was about ensuring that Canadian citizenship meant something, that it was earned, not inherited, without connection, that it reflected real and meaningful bond with our country. Bill C-3 replaces the first-generation limit with a weak, substantial connection test. Just 1,095 non-consecutive days spent in Canada at any point in a parent's life. No requirement for criminal background check, no meaningful demonstration of a commitment to Canada. Let me put that into perspective. Under this bill, a child born abroad could gain Canadian citizenship even if their parent spent just a few months here decades ago. That's not a substantial connection. That's not how we build a strong, united country. Conservatives believe in restoring citizenship to lost Canadians, those who were unfairly excluded by outdated laws. We support equal treatment for adopted children, ensuring that all families are treated with dignity and fairness. But we cannot support a bill that goes far beyond these necessary corrections and opens the door to unlimited chain migration, undermining our national identity and creating a two-tier immigration system. Let's talk about fairness. Immigrants who come to Canada and work hard to earn their citizenship must meet strict residency requirements, pass language and citizenship tests, and demonstrate their commitment to Canadian society. They contribute to our communities, our economy, and our shared future. Under Bill C-3, individuals who've never lived here could gain citizenship simply because a parent once did, decades ago. That's not fair. It sends the wrong message to newcomers who are doing everything right. It tells them that their hard work is worth less than a technicality. Residents in Kitchener Centre are frustrated. They see their public services, healthcare, pensions, housing, everything under strain. They worry that a surge of new citizens living abroad who've never contributed to Canada will stretch those services even further. That's why Conservatives took action. In the Immigration Committee, we worked constructively to amend Bill C-3 and bring common sense back to our citizenship laws. We introduced amendments that ensure prospective citizens by descent or adoption go through similar steps as naturalized citizens. We've added a residency requirement. Parents must demonstrate consecutive physical presence in Canada equal to that required of naturalized citizens. A language proficiency. They must speak English or French unless they are under 18 or over 54. A citizenship test. They must understand Canada's history, values, and responsibilities. Security screening. They must undergo a national security assessment. And transparency. The minister must report annually to the Parliament of the citizenship granted under Bill C-3, including country of residence and any exemptions to security screening. These amendments are not about exclusion. They're about preserving the integrity of Canadian citizenship. They're about ensuring that every new citizen, whether born here or abroad, shares a real connection to Canada and understands what it means to be Canadian. Madam Speaker, we must empower newcomers to place the same value on Canadian citizenship that generations before them have held. We must reassure Canadians that there's a better way, a way that is fair, principled, and rooted in our shared values. Canadian citizenship is not just a passport, it's a promise, a commitment, a privilege earned through dedication, contribution, and connection. Let's protect that promise. Let's stand up for fairness. Let's fix what the Liberals have broken. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Hamilton West and Castor Dundas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member from Kitchener Centre. My wife is a proud University of Waterloo grad. I have 3 post-secondary institutions in my riding, McMaster, Mohawk, and Redeemer, and the member opposite mentioned the International Student Program. And of course, international students and post-secondary education in particular is the responsibility of the provincial government. And this issue is mainly unique to Ontario. So will the member opposite acknowledge the responsibility of the Ontario Conservative government for their mismanagement of post-secondary education? Thank you.
Member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my member opposite for his question, and congratulations to your wife for being a graduate of our amazing U of W in Kitchener. I think the fact of the matter is we're not being transparent. They're just not being transparent about what this bill is doing and how about this chain of migration is going to bring extra strain, extra hurt, extra crime, extra affordability problems, extra health care, extra wait times to our hospitals. And I think we have to talk more about how this chain migration that they're proposing in this bill is going to just put extra strain on our country as a whole.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, thanks very much, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for her very thoughtful presentation today. As we reflect on the value of Canadian citizenship, I'm curious what her thoughts are, Madam Speaker, on what the message the government is sending to Canadians when, one of the wonderful things about Canada is that we're a democracy where people get to vote. Their representatives send them here to Ottawa, and when a majority of members they vote and take a decision on a piece of legislation, what does it mean to Canadians and those aspiring to be Canadians when the government says we're not so much interested in what the majority of democratically elected representatives say, and they just want to impose their will against the decision of the majority of parliamentarians who thoughtfully considered, reviewed, and amended the legislation that they put forward. Very interested in her reflections on that. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for the question because it is something that I didn't talk about in my speech, and it's incredibly important. This is a minority government, and the opposition parties have worked together to amend this bill, and I have to remind the government that this is a minority and that since we're working together in opposition and we've put time and effort in and we do represent the other voices of Canadians, that it would be very disheartening to Canadians to not hear the other voices from the oppositions working together on this particular piece of legislation. And I would ask them to listen to the opposition parties and do what's right.
Questions et commentaires. Questions, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'm not too sure if we're seeing from the Bloc and the Conservatives, in essence, saying that all members of the House are not equal. I think we have to recognize that whether one wants to or not, there is New Democratic Party presence in the House, there is a Green Party presence in the House, and by making the statement that she and others in the opposition have made, I think it marginalizes the importance of the individual member of Parliament. Does she not believe that all members should be equal inside the chamber?
Member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think that was just a question for a smokescreen to the fact that you're not listening to proper, thought-out amendments that are being brought forward to this legislation. And on that, the transparency of this government not telling Canadians what this chain migration is going to actually do to our systems that we currently have in place, what it's going to cost Canadians to do this. And it's time for us to work together and listen to all voices of Canadians.
We have to resume debate.